Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another video. So we just got a huge Star Wars announcement. E.K. Johnston, one of the most renowned Star Wars authors, has announced her new upcoming Star Wars book, and she says, this time we're going Crimson. That's right guys, this is going to be a Qi'ra book, Star Wars Crimson Climb, and she teases more details to come. Are we going to get an official announcement at Star Wars Celebration? Now the other question, when does this take place? Based on the picture on the front cover, with her holding Han's dice, I think this takes place in the middle of Solo, between the time they're separated and the time she joins Crimson Dawn, all of that backstory, her rise within the Syndicate. It's also worth noting, this is a young adult novel. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Emilia Clarke and a big fan of her character, and while this is great, we're getting too much Qi'ra in the books and comics. I'd love for her to come back in live action, if she's alive by the time of The Mandalorian. At the moment, she's also being explored in The Hidden Empire, the third and final installment of the War of the Bounty Hunters series. It was War of the Bounty Hunters, then Crimson Reign, and now The Hidden Empire, and she wants to take on Palpatine. Some of the plot of that is really insane. She's got some secrets up her sleeves, some plans that involve the Sith. But I do think this is going to be a solo tie-in, a prequel, or maybe encompassing her entire life from start to finish. I do think there's some substance there, but as I say, I would love for Emilia Clarke to come back. And speaking of which, she recently addressed this. She admitted she won't be returning to Star Wars anytime soon. This is from IndieWire, and they said the following: the bright-smiled and ever-enthusiastic Emilia Clarke has become a welcome household name since her outstanding performance in Game of Thrones, and in 2018's Solo: A Star Wars Story with the Star Wars franchise, and now on Marvel's mini project, Secret Invasion. While making the rounds for her newest Sundance film project, The Pod Generation, Emilia spoke about the prospect of returning to the galaxy far, far away. She responded saying she would happily return, but she doesn't think it's likely. In her own words, she said, "That would be lovely, that'd be very nice. I'm genuinely having a wicked time on Marvel though, they're absolutely brilliant." Clarke has never made light of the adoration she has for a Star Wars character, and she's even made mention of creative ideas she has for the character, many of which are different to what they're doing in the comics. She jokingly hoped she could pass the ideas to Disney, because like a lot of fans, she also wants a Solo too. Here's what she said: "Qi'ra's the one that has the most unfinished business. I really had pages about what her life was, what it would be like afterwards, but I'm afraid I've heard nothing being the case, so maybe I'll just write it and send it to them. I'll be like, hey, I've got a few ideas." Aside from Clarke, there's been enthusiasm from others on Solo who want to see a follow-up film, but Disney probably won't do it because Solo: A Star Wars Story lost a lot of money. Co-writer Jonathan Kasdan, who recently worked on Willow, has also expressed interest. He even told Jon Favreau he wants to see Qi'ra in The Mandalorian, remarking there is so much more they could do with her. And if you guys remember around the time of the Book of Boba Fett, it was a very popular theory that Qi'ra was going to appear. Of course she didn't, and it's looking increasingly unlikely that they're going to do more with her in live action. I think she's relegated to the comics and books, but if she cameoed, I would not complain. There was a lot of talk of Qi'ra returning with the Lando series, but we still have no updates on that. After her emergence to the entire world in 2010 on HBO's Game of Thrones, young Emilia Clarke was literally riding high above everyone else, not just on Dragonback but on her career arc. For nearly 10 years as the Mother of Dragons, she helmed one of the most iconic characters in television. And some would argue her performance was the catalyst for the ongoing, very successful House of the Dragon. Game of Thrones gave Clarke much deserved recognition as an actress and as a genuine-hearted person who nowadays wants little more than to give back and explore the deepest forms of art in film. We wish her the best, and I do hope she makes a return as Qi'ra one day. But the big takeaway, there is a Qi'ra book coming by E.K. Johnston. I can't wait to find out what it's going to be about. Could we see more Darth Maul? If it's about her early days with Crimson Dawn, that'd be amazing. And so now my dear friends, tomorrow is the Bad Batch mid-season double. Give me that juicy double. Episodes 7 and 8, The Clone Conspiracy, and Truth and Consequences. The titles sound so ominous. I think things are about to take a turn for a very dramatic second half of the season. Now, at the moment we're on Kashyyyk, the Bad Batch are helping the Wookiees, but something is going to change. I think this is the episode where Rex contacts the Bad Batch. I think he's been out there helping clones, and maybe he's already already saved Wolf, but in either case, I think he's going to warn the batch about what's going on within the Empire, a clone conspiracy. Word might have gotten out that the Empire is doing something behind the scenes, something with the remaining clones, not just like in War Mantle, but something darker, the creation of something stronger than the inhibitor chip. Could this be the beginning of Death Troopers, which I think Crosshair might turn into? The title of episode 7 tells me there's something more going on that the Bad Batch are going to be made aware of, something not on Kashyyyk. That's just my theory though, and it's a two-parter, so episode 8 is the truth and consequence of what takes place in 7. I'm very excited indeed, and also guys, we have a new poster for Gungi. In yesterday's video, we spoke about him and the Wookiees. Go and check that one out if you missed it. And so now, some new updates for Star Wars Celebration in London. The next slate of guests have been announced. We have Gwendoline Christie, who played Captain Phasma, Juna Suotomo, who played Chewie, Ming-Na Wen, who of course is Fennec Shand, Aidan Cook, a droid and creature performer from The Force Awakens and Rogue One, Silas Carson, who played Ki-Adi-Mundi and Newt Gunray, and Matthew Wood, a veteran at Lucasfilm. Personally of these, I'm most excited for Ming-Na Wen, Fennec Shand, one of the coolest characters in Mando. And so now, let's move on to The Mandalorian Season 3, something very small that I'm super excited about, Kowakian monkey lizards. And the most famous one of these is of course, Salacious B. Crumb from Return of the Jedi. Now we do know, according to the Star Wars databank, just like Max Rebo and Bib Fortuna, this little guy survived, but he's not the same Kowakian monkey lizard that we see in The Mandalorian Season 1. We see a cage of them on Nevarro, and they're being cooked for food. Neither of those is Salacious B. Crumb. They were different. So we don't really know what happened to him, whether Bib Fortuna kept him, or he went off to do something else. But it's really cool that in Season 3, we're gonna get to see these again. But unlike the ones on Nevarro in Season 1, these Kowakian monkey lizards are enjoying life. They're in the trees, pointing at things as we see in this frame, and Din Djarin with R5 and Grogu walk past him, because Nevarro has changed, nature is restored, and the Magistrate's grief cargo has done the planet a lot of good. It's vibrant, it's alive, there's life, it has a pulse, so that's going to be cool. And I think the little things like this are very underappreciated. The design is really awesome because they went with something different. It kind of reminds me of when we were told Gamorreans were going to be in The Mandalorian Season 2. We all expected the Gartog, Return of the Jedi looking ones, rather chunky, but the ones we got in Mando and the Book of Boba Fett were a new design, a reinvented design. And in this way, I think the creature design department does not get enough credit. I really love this kind of thing. I know it seems minor, it goes a long way for the world building, the familiarity, and The Mandalorian always gave me a sense of comfort because I remember watching the original trilogy when I was a kid on video on VHS, and I remember really loving the aliens. I've said this before. It was really Jabba's palace that made me fall in love with Star Wars, just the weird and the wonderful. And so small things like this mean a lot to the young version of Meg, who watched Return of the Jedi as a kid. And these little guys are really funny. Now, interestingly enough, over on Patreon, I've talked about Kowakian monkey lizards before. I did a planet series, and I mentioned that these creatures are from Kowak. The planet of Kowak was located in the galaxy's outer rim territories. It was the homeworld of the monkey lizards, but they also shared their world with mole fleas. Now, unfortunately, the Kowakian monkey lizards were oppressed by Zygerian slavers. Their prince, Sono Molek, ruled over their world. We first hear about Kowak in depth in the book Friends Like These, an adventure book for Fantasy Flight Games' Star Wars Age of Rebellion. It was a role-playing series. I really doubt The Mandalorian Season 3 is going to give us much depth with these guys, but it is good to get them nonetheless.